Oh, he said, she said, they said, we said, well, keeping it real with Wanda. Oh, she's a real deal, keeping it real for real, keeping it real with Wanda. Oh, all inclusion, no confusion. But he said, she said, clearing up the drama.
It's me, Wanda, listening to He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. Heart Radio station. So glad to have you guys here. If you're listening on YouTube, sponsors all states. They are located at 7381 West 87th Street. Insurance, you are in good hands with Allstate. Tell Sal I sent you. 708-599-5100. 708-599-5100. Okay, guys, we're going to be talking about stalking.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun. As well as dating with blended families. Have you guys ever been stalked? I want to hear the stories. And I'm gonna introduce my panel to you. I got a full house. This is
Full
fun.
house full today.
And we have drinks today, courtesy of our own N-Dot. We have to pour you one, dear Xavier.
Yes.
We have this is the He Said, She Said.
It has been named the
drink.
official.
This is orange juice.
He said,
It's freshly squeezed
for
orange.
the record, James has juice.
James has
Nothing
juice.
added.
He's sipping on just juice, not gin.
Just juice.
Just juice.
Rolling
So
down the
all the
street.
church folks, you don't go praying for him or talking about the preacher.
Right.
The preacher is in true
Trying
form.
to vote him out. He's still good.
Yeah, he all right. He all right.
Can't take his right hand of fellowship away.
They didn't turn him out on that show. He was sitting there drinking in a brandy glass.
No.
He's still
Not at
your
all.
church man.
Orange and peach juice. That's it.
That's it.
Quite
So I have with me none other than Xavier Fox. Hey, Xavier.
It's so good to be back again.
Yes. Okay, guys. This is exciting. Xavier has written a book.
Yes, my book released. I released it 2 weeks ago, and it's called The Men in My Life and What I've Learned. And the book launch is coming up on the 26th. So I'm hoping that all you guys will show up at Chance.
I also want to have for He Said, She Said people. Now, this is quiet. I'm making sure this is like between us. We're going to have our own book club and like read the book and about it. Okay, y'all.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
I want to do that. I've never had
We'll
like
do a Q&A.
And you can have the author there. I think that is so
That
much
is
fun when that
really
happens.
fun.
And you can ask her questions.
Especially with this book, because, you know, one of the things is a lot of women will definitely relate to a lot of different things in there. And the stalking part of it is really something I want to draw more awareness to, because oftentimes we hide the things that are going on because we feel like we've caused it somehow. And people will say to you, what you doing to them? Or what did you do to them, you know, to make them stalk you. But as I was doing some research, stalking is a symptom of a mental illness, whether it's depression or just the whole dealing with rejection or self-esteem.
What? Oh, wow. I know. We're going to get into that. N-Dot, hello.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey.
Well, crazy. I know, right? That's
All the
deep.
time,
We're going to be talking to James Borishade, our certified life coach, who is He Said, She Says, who is only drinking juice, like we said. Nikki.
I have a little more in my juice.
She is not only drinking juice.
And Nikki is here, brought up the topic of blended families and dating. And I was like, that's very good. We touched on it, but really didn't spend a lot of time with it that day. So I'm happy to have Nikki here to discuss that today. And then our Black.
Peace.
He's black, y'all.
He's black, y'all.
And he's here.
Just like the rest of us, but that's his name. It's not like we not black. I'm just joking, y'all. Okay.
So have you seen Spike Lee? Is that Do the Right Thing when he has the rap version? I'm black, y'all. I'm black, y'all.
Now, who you talking to?
Black, because I'm not you. Any and everybody else on Spike Lee.
Yes,
Spike Lee,
that is Spike Lee.
I'm not a black movie person. She took my black card a long time ago.
I collect black movies.
I've never seen many of them. No, I did see Crush
Color
Groove.
Purple.
Okay, well, that's a good start.
She's
That's a
not
good
seen The
start.
Color Purple.
I've seen
What?
The Color Purple.
Okay, I was about
Everybody
to
seen
say.
The Color Purple.
She must never.
She's in Purple. She's in Purple.
Shadow totally. they go. There they go. Look at them. Yeah.
We gonna test her. Do you know to be loved?
Yeah. Look.
The Color Purple may be the only one I do know the lines from.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a start. That's a start.
Nothing good. What she say?
Look,
The
yeah,
thing you
you
do
know
right by me.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That one.
I know that one.
She doesn't know to be loved.
She don't know to be loved.
Who is To Be Loved?
Be loved. Oh, what
Oh.
a feeling.
What is that?
Really?
Coming to
Coming
America.
to America.
Come to
Okay.
America.
Oh God.
Look, she said,
We're gonna
okay.
have to show black cinema.
So I-
Let's have a black cinema night here.
Yes,
Because
black
Wanda
cinema.
loses all the time. I had a Black History celebration, and Wanda's black card was the only black card revoked.
Oh no.
I
Oh, my
had to bring
goodness.
that up. So, okay, guys, we will now, if we'll get Xavier a drink as we head into our topic.
Lord.
Get it,
So,
baby.
guys, I do
Right.
want you. This is based on. I actually read this chapter, and it was very. I was like, "Woo!" It's suspenseful because you're like, "What's going to happen next?" Oh my goodness! And then if you've ever been stalked, you also recognize some of the same things that may have happened to you in that, or recognize a stalker. Because I'm gonna have to say, my mama was one of those type people.
Oh,
So I kind of was like, oh, you recognize the crazy too all at the same time. So, and like you said, I want to be gentle, not crazy. Mental illness that's involved.
Right.
Very much. Yes.
Be
Okay.
mindful. Be mindful.
Be mindful.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody who's tuning in on Facebook and everybody who shares. I so appreciate you. Hey, T Bizzle with my giggle in the middle.
T Bizzle.
And then Sonia, I think I'm going, hello, everyone. Hi, James says Sonia. Hello, hello, hello. Please, if you have something to say on this topic, we would love for you to chime in. So the name of the book.
Hey, Sonia.
The Men in My Life and What I've Learned. And it starts with my dad, because that was the first man in my life. And then it goes through, boyfriends, my mentor, just different men that were in my life. And it also covers when I was single, because those are men in your life as well. Even though they're just passing through, they're still there to teach you a lesson. So I go through all of those things. My husband, I was married. He is deceased. So I've been a widow since I was like 33. I was like the youngest. And I talk about that as well, because at that age, there's not a whole lot of support for you, because nobody expects you to be a widow at 33. So I touch on that. But writing the stalker chapter was so emotional, because one of those stories I never, ever talk about. I never, ever, and I'm not going to talk about it now either. You will have to get the book for that. 'Cause I
was
never
gonna
talk
say, wait a
about
minute,
it.
which one? I
No.
read it. Now I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know which
one I
one it
never
is.
talk about, but it really touches on a lot of when you listen to the whole Me Too stories and all those things. It touches on that, because there's a certain shame that the victim carries. Because people question. There was a post on Facebook the other day, and they were like, if 10 men say something, then it's like fact, but if 10 women say something, it's still questionable. And so when women report different crimes and things that have happened, you're always questioned as to what was your behavior, or what did you have on, or did you ask for?
Did you lead them on?
Right?
Or did you
lead them on?
You did
or
something
you had to
that
have
made that
done
behavior.
something. And especially with stalkers, people always think that you have done something to cause that. My went on 3 dates with this guy. I
Wait.
never even touched him.
So you've had
you do?
multiple.
I've heard
stalking?
three. I've had
Okay.
3 stalkers.
Good
Okay.
Lord.
Yeah.
When she said short, I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. It's
Yeah.
a thing. Okay.
Yeah, and I like big guys, so my stalkers are all like 6'4" and 6'5". I like the football player. So the 2 of them were pretty terrifying. The one that lasted the longest was very terrifying, because he would show up everywhere. He showed up at church.
Oh no.
He showed up at my church. Yeah.
Dang, I've shown
Yeah.
up at church
But you
before.
wasn't scared of the Holy Ghost or nothing?
Oh, he sure
I
wasn't
showed
scared of
up
the
at
Holy
What's
Ghost.
determined
showed
as
up at church.
stalking?
Claude, have mercy.
Claude.
That's making me wonder.
There is an official definition of stalking, and in the research that I did, stalking is any behavior that's considered harassment that would make a normal person feel fear. So if you are showing up and sitting out in front of my house day after day, I'm going to feel fear, because I think you're crazy, first of all. So I'm going to feel fear. And then if there is harassment, and, the threatening phone calls, the text messages. One of my stalkers, this was before we had cell phones and stuff. So, I'm a little older, but anyway. So he would call, and he would like load my voicemail up, so I couldn't get any voicemail from anybody else. Just things that
Wow.
are that lets you know that somebody crazy is following you around, showing up different places. Anything that would make a normal person feel fear is considered stalking.
I just realized I didn't think I know one for sure. I know I had one. Ooh, yes. But then I just realized maybe I've had more, because at one point in time there was someone who would show up, because I have I'm have a pattern to my life, so you could know where I'm going to be on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, and would show up when I was dancing, if I was there, and then just stand there, and wasn't told had broken off like months and months, but would continue to do this.
That is considered
that
stalking. Yep, that's considered stalking, because he was coming there for you. He was standing there watching you. So if that made you feel fear, that was stalking. And especially if you had asked him not to do it, then you could have gotten a restraining order and stopped him from coming there. So that was definitely stalking. Wow. But my whole purpose with bringing awareness to the stalking things, because in any given year, do you know there are 7.5 million people that are stalked in a year? Yes.
That's a lot of stalking.
That's
I
a
wonder
lot.
if people are being stalked and don't know it.
They're being stalked.
And sometimes that's the most dangerous, if you don't know that you're stalking, because oftentimes stalkers, there's like 5 reasons. You know, I was doing the research, so I haven't gotten all that part. I know my story, but they have done research on this stuff. But a lot of stalking situations can end in murder. Like 51% of the women who are stalked are killed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
1
scary.
out of 2.
I don't doubt that.
Yep.
Wow.
That's very scary statistics.
Yes.
Have you guys ever been stalked?
I've been stalked once. Well,
Yeah.
once that I.
There's a girl
care
in
to
the
talk
bushes
about.
now, Jane. I was like, why is this girl in the bushes? I
What
just
is she
stepped
doing
over
here?
her.
My last stalker was in college.
Okay.
Like, when I tell you stalking, I'm talking about sending you the letters with the cutout magazine stalk. I am not kidding.
Not from the bodyguard.
I'm not joking. I'm not
That's
joking.
real, like
That
happened in The Bodyguard?
Yeah, I thought that was just in the movies.
No.
And
that
she
was
left
your
that
life.
in my dorm. Somehow she got that in my mailbox in the dorm. And you know, you got to either know somebody behind the counter or go behind the counter
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nikki, have you?
Mine was a little different. I think it's a female that was stalking me.
Ooh, single
Not that she was
white
attracted
female
to me,
type.
Not that she was attracted
She
to
wasn't
me.
attractive, was
but
she,
it
in that book,
was-
in that movie?
Yeah. That you're right. She wasn't. But it was like when I first started Pillow Talk Pretty Things, I was pretty open as far as being public with social media. And I have a feeling I know who it is. But
They're still doing it.
like she would like bombard my YouTube videos with comments. And I know it's someone who knows me, because they would say things about me that, most people wouldn't normally know. I got like 20 emails a day in my Pillow Talk Pretty Things inbox. I was getting messages through Facebook. And like she was talking about my kids. Now at that point I was like, look,
Wow.
now when you bring my kids in the mix, we're gonna have a problem. That's an issue for me. So the person I think that it was, I reached out to some people and said, I'm gonna need you to let sis know this is not what she wants to go the road. She wants to go down with me.
No smoke.
Stopped after that, but I know because a lot of my stuff is public, because of Pillow Talk Pretty Things, she can still see that and she can still access it. And it is frightening, especially when someone does bring up your kids, and knows, and people know where, not necessarily, but where I live, the vicinity. So it's very frightening, because I've known this person for 20 years at least. And the fact that how long has she been trying to keep up with, how long is she, does she just sit and literally look at my Facebook page all day? Does she, or my Pillow Talk Pretty Things page, or my Instagram pages? And that's a really scary thing. So when we have social media, we really are opening ourselves up. But it's that doesn't give you the right to invade and to make me feel uncomfortable.
A lot of your things happened before cyber stalking was even added. Did most of the stories?
Yeah,
or 2 out of 3.
The 3 stories that's in the book were actually with men that were I inherited a stalker earlier this year.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
Black, before I get to the inherited stalker.
Hold on.
Like the person who somebody else died, and now you may now take me over.
What's the genealogy for your
That's the whole topic. So I'm gonna let Black answer before I go to hearing how you inherit stuff.
Yes, I've had one.
Okay.
I definitely had one.
Congratulations. Are we like what is the term for getting like I'm
It's
sorry?
the voice.
You say I'm sorry? Okay, I'm sorry.
It's crazy. Man, I was
He looked
probably
like
a
he
little bit
still
too
shook.
young to be, really interacting with her age group.
One of those.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds crazy though. Seems like people that I know intelligence doesn't come with maturity doesn't come with age, but it seems like
Whoa.
that's even sadder when the person's older.
Yeah, but
And
I would have to say
Scarier.
that
They have more resources.
it taught me to respect the mind of a woman.
Okay, we're gonna end that right there.
Yeah.
Even though guys talk too, I think more women are.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about because
play no games with you guys.
No more playing with your emotions. Y'all nuts.
No.
We are not though.
The mind of a woman.
You just don't
Y'all
understand it.
resourceful.
Yes, that we are.
Resourceful
Amen.
is not the word.
Inherited stalkers.
How do you
inherit a stalker?
So I started seeing this guy, and he had a stalker.
Oh,
And
okay.
so as soon as she
That
found
makes
out
sense.
that there was a woman on the scene, she started to stalk me. She cyber stalked me though, and I'm a public person. I do public posts, but around Christmas time, I actually had to shut down my page because it got really bad. And so that was something. The only reason I stayed with him through the stalker thing is because I've had, I'm going to say this just from my experience. I had male stalkers. Female stalker was nothing like the male stalkers. So, because the men are very intimidating. And again, I like big guys. So my stalkers were like 6'4", 270 pounds. One was actually
They're
a
more
football
intimidating,
player.
you're saying.
They're very much
Okay.
so intimidating.
Okay.
So another woman, I'm not as intimidated by her, even though, people are crazy. So you never know what level of crazy they're coming with. But yeah, so the only reason I actually dealt with that was because I'd been through it 3 times already. I felt like I was the stalking
You was
mentor.
like, I got this.
I'm like,
boo.
listen, you need
Who
to
you
go do
calling
this.
80
And you need
times?
to do that.
You ain't affecting me.
You need to block this.
99
But you know
phone
what?
calls.
You know
later,
what's
bigger.
funny? You know what's funny? Okay, so the thing about stalking is until you're being stalked, you don't realize how some of the simple things that we think are a benefit actually aid the stalker in ways that is really
Such
harassing.
as-
They have this app or something where you can get fake phone numbers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you can get a
Voice
Google
and
number.
everything.
Right. You can get, and she would get just rant. This is his stalker. It wasn't out back then when I was being stalked, thank God. But you get these random phone numbers. You can't block every freaking phone number because you can get hundreds. She could get, it was
There's an app that will
ridiculous.
just mask your number to anything you want it to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Technology is
Exactly.
helping the stalker.
And so that
Yes.
actually helped her continue to attempt to get, contact and stuff, because they say there's 7 reasons why people stalk. One is retaliation. Heartbreak is a big one, and that leads to the depression. That leads to the depression.
Yeah.
But when you lump retaliation and heartbreak and depression all in there together,
That's a
That's
Molotov
cocktail.
That's the
And
one
so-
my mother was.
and so that's why
she had the
51% of women wind up murdered, because even though you get the restraining orders and all those things, it doesn't stop the right this moment from happening.
So
Right.
Teresa said that she's had 3 girlfriends that were all domestic violence victims
Whoa.
and were all victims of stalking
That's
as well.
very common.
And she said there were survivors, and I apologize, Teresa. But she also said that I stalked James.
That James Black. We refer to him as
Because he
Black.
looks like a Greek god.
Oh my goodness.
T Bizzle's gonna
And
be
then she
outside.
followed up with, "I'm just joking." But we know
Right.
she
T
did.
Bizzle, if you outside when this is over, we don't know.
She just gonna happen to bring us lunch today.
Oh,
Just happen to bring lunch.
wow.
But there are a few people that are chiming in saying that they have been stalked. I've not been stalked, and I'm like, dang.
There's nothing to be.
It ain't nothing
No.
there,
No.
man.
You don't want that, baby.
Congratulations.
You do
don't
not
want
want
that.
that.
However,
You don't want that.
I've done like
Stalker.
you're the
Oh.
stalker.
Oh, you're like
I've done some heartbreak stuff
Okay.
in my youth.
You
All right.
Well, thank you
you were
for
not
being
the
In my
stalker,
20s.
you
In
were the
my
stalker.
20s, yes.
You
So
only
tell us the mind
29.
of somebody.
Yeah, share some of that.
So I showed up at my guy's
Was he still your guy,
side
really?
piece. We were still together.
Okay.
Whoa,
But he
whoa.
was cheating, and he was at his side girl. I'm not gonna even call it. He was his other girlfriend.
That's not.
And I
That's
showed
not
up.
stalking.
Well, I showed up at her house,
That's investigation.
and I called.
That is
and-
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
That is
Wait a minute.
considered stalking.
That's
That's stalking.
Investigation.
That is stalking.
Yeah.
Wait. You showed up at
That's stalking.
her.
I showed up
Right,
at her house
right.
and told him to look out.
So she was
I
the
knew
stalking.
how to. Yeah, I
I-
found
I have
where
a
she
question.
lived, and
How did you find out about her?
I was in my 20s. You're real resourceful.
14.
You didn't even have to follow. You just have to.
Just
Even now, information, the internet puts you all the
Dude,
way out there.
yeah.
All you need is a first
Yeah.
and last.
We ain't
name.
gonna never figure out how to do it.
No,
Like,
I was just
like-
trying to sneak some information in right quick, but okay, I'm gonna leave that alone.
And
All
so
right.
I
Our private
harassed, and
Yeah.
I'm very ashamed of this, but I harassed this girl's life. I showed up at church.
Oh, that's the stalker.
You went to
You
church.
showed up at the Lord's house.
I did.
Who stalks at church?
At her church?
At her church.
They stalk you
And
at church.
stood up so she could see that I was
when
in
they announced
the
visitors, you stood up and said, "Hey,
You
I'm
like,
a stalker."
No.
For you.
I stood up at a random moment. Let me tell you, I was
Stood at a random moment. Just straight.
Oh, that's my song. Let me stand up
So
so you can see
the
me.
pastor was up, and so I was like,
What?
"This is a great time for me to stand up because she's paying attention. Nobody else. It was a couple people standing, but it wasn't a lot of people standing,
Baby.
so I wouldn't be lost." And I just stood up,
Preach,
and
pastor.
I saw when she made eye contact with me.
What did you do?
I
Did you
just
stare-
wanted her,
stare
no, I
down?
needed her to know. Again, in my 20s,
I
so
see
in,
you.
in
She
your
has grown.
20s,
Yeah, you see me.
Wait, did
She
you
is
clap?
different.
I see.
You're right. But in your 20s, the stalking is trying to make the other girl stop dealing with the guy so you can get the guy rather than
That
just.
So
doesn't
you
matter.
thought that showing up at church
Well,
was gonna
this is
make
my-
her stop?
Listen, this
Okay,
is the mindset
okay.
of a
Of a
20-year-old.
20-year-old.
Right.
When women harass other women, it is not to get them to like be intimidated. It is to win the guy.
Yeah.
So I need to intimidate you to a point where you stop dealing with the guy.
But what if the guy just don't want you?
I mean-
But she's not thinking. You're not
none
thinking
of that
you're not-
matters.
Oh.
You really
Yeah,
feel like
none
if
of
they
that
go
matters.
away,
This is
then
why
this
my
is
book
I
what
can
starts
have
off
the
with my
guy
father.
Stalking too.
to myself. Yeah. None of that matters. And it
Say-
doesn't make sense
Say
now that I'm a mature adult. None of it makes sense. But I will go on the record and say I am totally guilty.
But there are
of
people
it.
still doing
I'm
it.
glad you shared that story though.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, because
glad
there are
you
people
are the
doing that
bigger
now.
person.
Saints
Right.
be stalking. Yes, they
The
do.
Yeah.
saints do stalk.
Saint stalk.
Now let's be real.
And then
The
I left
saints
there and
don't-
went to my own church. Like,
Oh,
Oh.
Holy Ghost praise him.
I hope you went to the
I
altar.
stalked to Jesus.
I went to that early morning
Psychology
service.
She went
today.
to what the Lord has for me. It's for me.
It's for me.
Psychology Today says there are 6 types of stalkers plus one. Domestic, stalking to a former spouse or paramour. This is the most prevalent kind of stalking, and one is in the workplace, putting innocent bystanders at risk. Lust, serial predators who stalk victim after victim.
Whoa.
Serial rapists and murderers may begin as lust stalkers. Love scorned, an acquaintance, coworker, neighbor, etc., who desires an intimate relationship with the victim but is rebuffed. A subtype of the love scorned stalker is someone with the delusional disorder erotomania. There's no C in erotomania. This type of stalker, usually female, believes her target is madly in love with her.
Wow.
The woman who repeatedly broke into David Letterman's home and stole his car, claiming to be his wife, is one example. Celebrity, those who stalk famous people, for example, John Hinckley. Political, stalking motivated by political beliefs, which could include either a victim, for example, Sirhan. Hit, murder for hire, stalking of a victim by a hired killer in order to commit murder, and then revenge. An angry former employee, an aggrieved business partner, a resentful neighbor, a vindictive relative, or any other person usually known to the victim whose motive for stalking is payback.
Yeah, Maxine Waters is going through a case now where her
Right.
stalker has been arrested, and his retaliation was he didn't want her speaking ill of 45. And so he told her that he would harm her. He would actually kill her if she didn't stop speaking out against 45. He's now in jail. Now he says, "Oh no, I didn't mean it. I didn't
No.
try to." Yeah. That she had it 15 years ago, where a guy will park at the corner of her job to see him come or go from either to see her come and go from either interest, call her parents' numbers whose number was listed, knock on her neighbor's door.
Wow.
The police said there was nothing they could do unless he did it to me. I literally had to investigate, find out where his grandmother went to a gang leader and asked for help. Don't know what they said, but he never bothered her again. Oh,
They
she went to
took
the
care of
gang
it.
leader.
That's
But the
they-
fear
that's-
doesn't
I'll tell you
leave.
a couple
I
things
saw
they
him
said.
at a movie theater with a girl about 3 years ago and was shaking up like it had just happened, even though she wasn't alone.
Yeah,
Oh,
That is
yeah,
he
that's
wasn't gonna bother
very,
you no
very
more.
traumatizing though. That's why I mean, little things trigger you, like when you talked about the domestic abuse. And it's so important that if you're in that situation, that you understand the things that you can do to keep yourself safer. Changing your routine, even having to change churches, even having to change where you work and where your kids go to daycare, where they go to school, making sure you have a safe word or code word with your neighbors, making sure, like, for example, some of the victims or survivors that I've talked to that are still being stalked, they have a certain light. If the light goes on, the neighbors know that there's a problem. Things such as making sure you have communicated with your family members so that they know who the person is and what they can do. Your boss. I mean, if you think about, I know one of my former students, his mother was killed at her job by her stalker. And, they weren't aware that it was happening. She didn't want to tell out of shame,
a lot of shame.
But she's walking out to her car. He stabs her to death. And he was previously in jail for killing another woman.
Oh my God.
So victim blaming is the worst thing that we can do. But as victims of stalkers or abuse in that situation, we have to make sure that we're diligent in changing our routine always. And for me, I've always said, always expect the worst, plan for the worst. And so that, if that situation does come to you, then you're able to, address it at that time or deal with it. But don't ever be ashamed of having to change your routine, having to explain to people, I have to disconnect, having to move. You're keeping yourself safe. You need to do what you need to do to keep yourself safe, period.
Exactly.
And honestly, one of my favorite movies is Enough, with Jennifer Lopez. If you remember that scene where where she's talking to the detective and he's like, I can't really advise you what to do, but this is really what you need to do. And ultimately she had to end up killing dude because he was not going to stop. And I'm not suggesting that people go out there and get ready to kill somebody. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that you have to, if it really gets to that point, you have to be prepared to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
You have a right to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times the victims, what happens is, they'll feel shameful of going to such extremes to protect themselves. You feel bad because you're a human being, but forget all that. If somebody's after you, if somebody's stalking you, you do what you need to do to keep yourself safe.
You're listening to He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. And we are talking about stalking. And the way this topic came up is from dear Xavier Fox, who has a book and a book signing coming up August 26th. And this is is the men in your life and the stories. Give me the title.
I've learned.
And what you've learned.
It starts with my dad. The stalking chapter is just one of I think 14 chapters that are in the book. But that is it caused the most emotion as I wrote it. And I really wanted to bring more awareness to it because it is something that the victim feels shamed by. And a lot of women, like we were saying, and some men are killed. There's 7.5 million people being stalked every year. That is a lot of people. 38% of women in their lifetime will be stalked, and we have to get out there and tell somebody what's going on. Don't be ashamed just because somebody's going to say, oh, what did you do to him? Or what are you doing?
Right.
What that is just, that's so wrong. And people who say that stuff, you guys really need to stop because stalkers have a mental illness, whether it's depression, self-esteem. There's a lot of things that go on in the stalker's mind. You cannot create a stalker. Okay. That is already in them.
Right.
If you think you can create a stalker, you are having some ego problems.
Or rationalize. What I noticed, even with my mom, who is she's on the way side of being I mean, really bad. So love her. She's not on Facebook, so I have to worry. I don't even know if she knows what Facebook is. But I will say that unfortunately, when people give you rational things to try to talk to a stalker,
Right,
like,
right.
didn't you just try talking to him? Like,
Right.
if it was
That does
that
not
simple,
work.
maybe I would have.
wouldn't be in a
They give you
position.
all these rational things
Exactly.
that you think a stalker would
Just tell 'em
actually.
don't come to
Just
church
tell
no
them
more.
that.
Right. Just tell them don't show up in front of your house.
You're way past all
Hello?
Did you ever think? Well, did you ever? And they really came up with something. You know what? I'm thinking you should sit down and talk to them. And tell them like you can't.
That's
have
the problem.
that
They don't like what you
conversation.
have to say. When you say no, it's over, that's a problem. And the more you say it to them, the bigger that problem
Right, 'cause
gets.
you're
And then
entertaining them.
their behaviors start to become more and more aggressive as it goes on. I went to lunch with a girlfriend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting because, the book was out and everything. And she was one of my girlfriends that was with me during that time period. And she just randomly out of the blue, she said, I remember when we used to have to walk you to the car after work because the stalker, she knew his name, but the stalker, because it's your friends and family,
It
those who
affects
do
everybody.
know, it affects everybody.
Oh,
There was, because we would get off late at night, and he was a football player, and I worked in the same area, and he would be standing in my car sometime. You can't.
Yeah.
That's what he does for a living,
Right.
So it would be me and like 3 or 4 of my friends so that I could get to the car safely.
So T Bizzle says catfishing is a form of negative stalking too.
Is
And
that-
if you watch the show, it is. Now that
Some
you
of them
now
are
that you give the
seriously- some of them are
definition,
seriously
To me,
mentally
to me,
ill
it's-
though. Like they're
It's more lying than anything.
well, they do their research though on the person.
I mean, but like the person that's supposedly getting catfished, you indulge.
They're not scared of the person.
Nah.
Usually they're
Okay,
in a
they
relationship
think it's
with
someone
them.
else.
You-
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
person, you lying. You giving a false sense of.
But
Oh,
they're
you just
they're
wanna
not
be-
afraid of you while you're doing it
because
either. I
it's too
don't
much
think.
interaction with that.
John
What happens
Evans,
when
read
you find
his.
out?
Okay.
Right.
Joe Evans
when the hurt
says,
comes.
I asked him what he meant by how we all have different interpretations of what stalking is. And his response was, I mean, we have all had bad times when we didn't understand why someone wasn't including us in what we thought was a relationship and wanted to know what was really going on in the other person's life. That feeling promoted investigation that could be viewed as stalking. That's what I was told about the person stalking / investigating him.
Like you
I
going
told
to
you
the
because
church.
it's
Like some
investigation.
people wouldn't
Yeah.
consider that stalking.
But the fact that I did my research to know that this young lady
And
went to
showed
this
up.
church, that she would be there on this particular day.
Showed
I
up.
think it's the time and effort that you have
And it's
that you put
repetitive
into
behavior.
Let
It's
me-
not something you did
finding
one
out what
time.
somebody does.
Let me
Right.
I
ask
only
this
went one
though.
time though. I showed up at her house too.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't show up at her house for him. I showed up at her house. I mean, for her. I showed
To
up
see
for
if
him.
that's where he was.
But
No,
you
he was
showed up
there.
at her
But
house.
that's
yeah.
an investigation. No?
That's
So the-
intimidating.
So the aha, it didn't satisfy your thirst.
But where does
No,
the scenario happen? I don't know. I mean, I don't mean here, but if you're having a relationship with two people at some time, is there no consequence?
Exactly.
Is that I don't know. I know it's gonna sound bad, but
No,
I don't
so
know how
I
to
get
do way to
exactly what you're saying,
ask
like,
it.
do I bring the responsibility of it, or was he a bit
Somehow responsible
for
to
some of
some
the-
You are
degree.
always
In
responsible
that
for your own
particular
behavior.
situation.
You are always responsible for your own behavior.
Can we pause that for 1 second? If we could take what you just said and bottle that in the he said, she said group in all topics,
Yeah.
the world would be a better place.
Well,
Yeah.
that is the foundation.
the
We are
foundation of
responsible for our
everything.
own behavior.
No
Period.
one makes
So
you do
regardless
anything.
of whether he's dating 1 or 5 people, the way that you respond to
Respond
that
is what,
is on
right.
you.
Respond.
Because there are
It's
many
called
you could have just
response.
walked
Right.
away.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
well, like
Yeah.
Joe said,
You are
it
able to
it comes
respond.
from a point of rejection. And I think women indulge in it a lot more. I don't know. I've never been stalked, so I don't know the male part of it, but I do know several women who have been rejected by the guy, and that prompts them to look into, like, what does he see in her? What is she doing? And I found out about her by checking out him, so I was really stalking him. and found out about her, and
She
kind of their
inherited you.
routine.
She
inherited
inherited you.
That is a good example of how
If
you get an inheritance
like that, be
Put that
prepared to
together.
be inherited a stalker.
And then
The mind of a woman. That was perfect example.
Perfect example. It made
and
sense
more
to me when
women
you said it that way.
understand What you
But
just
the,
said.
but the crazy thing is, like, that's not going to make him want you more. It's going to actually make
Right.
him go further
But
away from
it's
it.
not
But I
a
get
lot
Which
what
I
you're
said,
saying.
it was a very
Right.
immature.
Right.
It was a very immature mindset. But a lot of women think that I'm gonna call this girl up and tell her not to talk to my
And
guy.
they're not all
or-
in their 20s.
Yeah.
Listen,
They're-
Oh, no,
Oh,
it gets
no.
worse when
Now,
women
what
are
about
older, I
this
think.
dynamic,
When-
right? What about this dynamic? Okay, we all work, right?
Yeah.
We all
Yes.
at our jobs and everything like that. What about the? And I've heard this as of late.
He cracks me up. He starts cracking up before.
Right. I'm like,
Spit
spit it out.
He's processing.
The at work husband.
Oh Lord.
They don't stalk.
What? Wait, hey, the at work husband. He listens to all your problems. You indulge all your facts at home to this man.
You spend more time with him than you do with
That's
your
not stalking.
partner.
No, I'm just
No, he's
saying.
getting
Like,
to like.
Oh, okay. You
I'm
get
just
into the
throwing it out
stalking
there,
part.
Like, what is he?
Work husband.
Well, he's
No.
But
he's
saying
not.
he gets
Well,
really
the thing
too involved
is,
in it
you're
afterwards.
you're
You know
offering,
what
but
he
you're
is?
offering
What is he?
information.
He's a candidate for the husband to stalk.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
He's
he
a
is.
stalking candidate.
Because he's not
He's
not
a stalker.
investigating her. She's giving him information. When you go looking for my information,
There's two willing
that's
parties
the-
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
On the
It's
stalking,
like,
Xavier
what-
inherited didn't want that woman.
So he
Involved in
can
her life.
turn into one, right?
Yeah, there was actually I just saw.
I mean,
everybody
he's
where
likely
a guy
going
He's going
ended
to.
up killing the
No,
husband
he's not
because he
going
thought
to.
that there was
Why
something going
not?
on between him and the work wife.
Wow.
Your beautiful
Wow.
self,
So-
and you just talking to him, and he bringing you lunch, and
Yeah, those water cooler conversations are.
I mean, it is a catalyst of any. If
It could be, but I don't
It
think
could
it's
be.
like stalking though, because you're still in. You're
it's not a
giv-
candidate for.
If
can
he
turn
was
into it, but
if
not
he was the
initially.
co-worker and
You see him
bring-
every day,
if he was the co-worker and I was not giving him
Then it
information,
was
but he was
stalking.
finding
but
out,
you're giving him information.
but that's
Well,
the
that's if he
difference.
wanted
I'm
to be the
giving him the
husband.
So
I mean,
information.
if
I
he
think
wanted to be
we're
real
talking about
though.
being able to
So-
identify stalkers at this
Yes.
point.
So
And
let me take it a step
identifying
further.
a stalker
Uh-huh.
is one of the things is the jealous and possessiveness. That is one of the first things I look for when I start talking to a guy. If he shows that jealous possessive thing early on, it's a wrap. I'm out because I've seen
Yeah.
that what that develops
And
into.
what it grows into. That's
Yes.
what I'm saying. So if you donating all your information,
I love the way you put that.
yeah,
Donating.
right. That's what you're doing. Because in essence, okay, you're unhappy at home a little bit, and it grows. And he's a good listener, and he gives you good feedback.
Mm.
I don't think it's the same.
Yeah,
Not on it.
No,
I think
what
it's
he's
not
asking
stalking
is
until
that guy a
it's not
candidate?
unwanted.
Yeah,
Everybody is a candidate.
But I
Not
don't think all
everybody.
work husbands.
Yeah.
Some know their role. They're not trying to be in a relationship with you
So why
outside
are
of
you
work.
entertaining the conversation then?
That's a whole
Friend.
different
Yeah,
topic.
that's hold on.
Friend.
That's a
okay.
different topic.
Yeah.
That's a different
That's
topic.
a different.
You
That's
want
a
me to
bit of
get
a
your
different
friend?
topic.
That's a different.
Right.
Hold that
Your
topic
man
for the
should
next one.
be your friend. There should
Yes,
be no
that's-
need for
I
the
agree,
work
I
husband
agree.
and the
Okay,
work
so
wife
we
and
understand
stuff.
your
But that doesn't
Your,
mean they're
your
gonna
mate
stalk
should be
you.
your friend.
They could,
They could.
They keep,
But you know,
and
it's
your
about
husband could stalk
identifying.
him,
You still have to
and
identify
she could
those
stalk him. All those
You're
people in that
creating a
scenario
potential-
could
You
start
think your-
stalking
you
each
think your
other.
work husband
In that,
waits
but
to
in
hear
that
next
case, your
story the next
husband
day?
could be your stalker.
Right,
Your
the
who?
husband could
Your
be
husband
That,
could be
that,
your
and, but that
stalker.
happens in domestic
But
violence
I
all
got
the time.
paperwork on you, so
Yeah, the
I
husband
mean,
does
you're
become
mine.
He's
No.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Huh?
no.
Okay.
Get him.
Alright.
Help, look,
No, you don't have a okay to stalk.
Actually, I'm gonna help you all understand what he's trying to say.
Okay,
Please,
thank you.
help.
He's
Thank
trying
you.
to let you enter into the mind of how men think. While you all think you have an innocent work husband, dude 9 out of 10
He's thinking something
is
else.
thinking something completely different than you, and he's preparing
Okay.
for you.
That uniform fit nice.
Right? He is
Okay.
preparing
Really?
for
You
you.
putting on that good lipstick is working.
That's what he's trying to say.
So it could turn into
It
that
could turn
stalking
into a stalker.
situation. Yeah.
Yes, it could.
Yeah.
It may not be.
Well, that could
nearly
be
to
on
the
either
level.
side though,
That could
because
be-
of
Very
the
true.
work wife could turn into a stalker. Now, more men do stalk women. 38% of women are stalked. I think it's like 13% of men are stalked. So more men do stalk women than women actually stalk men. I
But
just
men are
think,
just more
I was about to
vocal.
say, are y'all
and more
just
men.
better at it?
I think that
so.
I think
Crazier
I think
at
so.
perhaps.
that
Wait, you
Better
said more
at-
men stalk. So how
more
we
men
better?
stalk
Because y'all don't
women
get caught. No, you
than
are
women
More
stalk
men stalk.
No, I think
Listen to what
I
I'm
think
saying. Some
women are
ladies
more
can stalk,
vocal.
and you won't even know she's stalking you.
You saying that the
You
numbers
might
would be different if we're
Undocumented stalker.
Undocumented
I don't know
I'm
that.
like, you're
I think
because
women
we're
are just more
natural private
vocal.
investigators.
Listen, man,
I
this
don't
work,
think
this
they're-
right here, we will never win. We just might as well just go to the next.
He said we will never.
You know
Nah.
what? I think the where it comes in at having inherited the stalker. So again, I like big guys. So the guy that we're talking about is 6'6", 280 pounds. So a woman is really not going to intimidate him much. So women are not going to stalk men to the same degree because we're not as intimidated. What is she going to really do? I mean, unless
Because
she shoots us from afar, unless she scratches up something. I mean,
He's not
that
that
kind
scared
of
of her as
saying
we
what's
be.
the Martin
But a
Lawrence
man
way
is
for someone?
intimidating. He's going to show up.
Hey,
I had a guy show with one of my stalkers. He showed up at the gym. I'm running on the treadmill. He grabs my arm. I mean, men are going to show up because that's what they are. They're going to show up and be aggressive.
Did you get restraining orders?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
all
okay.
of that.
Yeah, restraining.
I just want to add this point. Okay, physically, the man. Okay, I got that. But mentally, situation control, environmentally, the control that a woman has, her resourcefulness that she has is the same crippling effect. She can cripple a man.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
I have a girlfriend that stalked a guy and did
My father
a whole
lost
lot
his
of
job
stuff.
because of my mother's.
Yeah,
Come
she
on,
did a whole
man.
lot of stuff.
And
But
it-
it's just that
it
fewer
is
men
crippling.
are still
and then
stalked.
speaking about that movie in itself, she was beating herself with oranges, called the
And called the
police,
police and
and
had
then
him
was like
arrested.
had him arrested.
A
thin line.
Oh,
Between
okay.
love and
One of the
hate.
ones
Thin
that
line
put up
between love and
the.
It's one of the ones we'll do with Black Cinema Night.
Right.
We're gonna help.
I
you,
don't think
Wanda.
we
It's
can get them
okay.
all in what I haven't seen in a night. We have to do
That's one of the classes.
weeks, months, Black
Yeah.
Cinema Month.
Oh, Lord.
So a thin line that she did what now?
she was like
she
beat
beat
herself.
herself,
To make it look like he
and
was
then
doing
she
it.
called the
Oh.
police. So you
Like he just fresh wounds, fresh everything.
There was 2 movies like that. Sanaa Lathan and Denzel Washington. She did the same thing. She
Yeah.
busted her face in the
Yeah.
glass and had the
you
cut
know,
on her face.
so it's like mentally,
That is crazy.
It's crippling. It's the same as physically with the man. So I feel like it's a yin and yang with that.
And I'm not
I mean,
trying
you
to
have
make
to-
a win or lose or more
No,
men,
we
more.
can't. We
It's
can't.
not
you have to- I
a
think
one.
it's important
Just
that
bring
you
up the
not
topic.
recognize
Yeah.
crazy like early on.
Yes.
Like I, being in the dating. Well, I don't like to use the term date, but in the friending scene, like if a guy is like constantly calling me all of the time, like I had a guy that used to be like, "Did you forget about me?" And I'd be like, "What? We went out one time, dude. Like, stop calling me." Like it's a red flag to me. Like I immediately cut it off because I know what it's like to be with a crazy. Because I know what it's like to be with a crazy, like the first sign of crazy
Yep.
that I see in you,
Yep.
I'm out the door.
I'm out.
One guy, the second time we went out, he asked me to go with him to a wedding. No, that's like that you doing too much right now. Like if
He
you
might
all
just
that,
like you.
well, that's fine, but that's not where I want to be right now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
to me,
At a wedding?
that's
I might want to show you off.
no. See, that's doing too much, and we've only gone out twice. You're doing too
Right.
much right
I
now. To me,
agree.
that's a sign for me. That doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
Chill, fall back, bro. It's cool, but like you have to recognize the signs of crazy. That you're calling every time. You're texting me all of the time, and then you start asking me, well, who was I with? Where
Oh yeah.
all-
Yeah,
all
well,
that.
I agree on
sign.
that.
It says,
That's
now
jumping
there's
off
the
cliff
line.
right
He
there.
just
Yeah. Who
jumped
was I
over.
with?
Yeah.
Characteristics, they are intense people. They set their sights on you and they've made a decision that you are the one they want.
Yes.
So that's one. Number 2, obtaining details about you before you provided them. So
Yeah.
knowing that you're
So
at the
does that mean
church.
no background checks?
Yeah.
Is that when
Uh-oh,
people do
church.
background checks? You know how now with online
All right,
dating,
is that
Well,
stalking?
no,
People
I
do
do background
background
checks.
checks.
So if
That's not
considered
stalking. If you do it, then
No.
you're not a stalker.
No, because if I'm gonna hang out with you, I am gonna Google you. I am gonna find out.
you're-
No, because I have too much to lose.
So you can't wait for them to provide it to you.
No, I'm good.
I feel
To me, that's not
differently. I feel
stalking.
like if you're at a
That's
point
not
where you
stalking.
have
That's
to do a
protecting
background check,
James,
then don't. Like, don't entertain
The
it.
look.
So like you don't
is my
Google
feeling.
people. Like
I don't.
The look is my
I haven't
Okay.
either. I don't
Why
know.
not let them give you the information? Why
mean,
do you want to
I'm
take
saying,
control
like,
of it?
Okay, so if with my career, people that I just can't associate with because I could lose my certificate. So if I Google something and I see you have a newspaper article where you were a convicted felon of doing something, like I can't associate with you. I can't be in my position and then have you in
so
my
why
life. I just
not
can't.
so why not upon meeting the person do you divulge that, hey, this is what I do, and unfortunately I gotta background check you, so they know that you're
Do I say
doing
I'm
a background check?
No, I don't tell people I mean, you can Google anyone.
So
No
I'm
one's gonna say I'm
struggling
Googling
with-
you. I actually no, I'm lying. I will tell a person I will Google you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with
I have done that.
who's doing too much, because him saying I want to take you to a wedding, I like you, is doing too much. But you running Carfax on a dude.
No, not that type of investigation. No, not that. No, just a simple Google, like make sure you're not a criminal, make sure your name's not flashed across the newspaper.
That's still
as some pedophile or something like that. That's what I mean by that. I don't mean like
You're getting
anything.
credit.
I don't have
for
access to
it.
anything
Dating.
else.
It's over with for dating. It's over with. It's over with. You might as well just. You know what? We need to have an app, right? With like a fingerprint, and then it's like, okay, man, just
You
put your
did my
phone
fingerprint.
Safe, yeah.
Hey, listen, man.
And
okay,
come up
everything
like,
checked out.
he
everything.
crazy.
So now we get-
Your
yeah.
HIV
I mean, the wedding
results,
thing is
and
not
arrest,
anything.
everything is
Yeah.
right on there. All of that is right on there.
Number 3 was they ask you extremely specific questions about photos or messages you post online.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
will get you eliminated from me quick.
Immediately.
Yeah, real quick.
Like, where exactly
So
were
who's
you?
that?
do
Who's
that.
that guy?
Or
you're
who's that
sitting
guy
with?
in your picture?
picture?
Oh my God.
Oh
I'm so
man, y'all
bummed.
knew exactly what the question was.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because it's asked, and
Yeah.
that's
It's
ridiculous.
asked
That is
Yep.
ridiculous.
Social
Yeah,
media
often.
is such-
Who's
is
that
such
guy in the
a
picture?
send-off.
Who's
Yeah.
that guy in that
It's
picture with you?
Mhm.
Could that not
So
be-
what's your status with him?
Be like, that's my
What?
father.
Could that not be a
Oh,
question to see
man.
if you're dateable?
I'm dateable if I'm carrying on with you, if I'm talking to you and
Well, that's
we're,
not
we're
true.
hanging
Some
out.
people have wives and are.
Well,
I think it's
That's
it's
true.
honestly the
That's true.
tone of not really a question. It really is you're accusing me of dealing with another guy.
Well,
So
it
I get
may
asked
be-
that all the time because I have 3 male best friends and they're in most of my pictures. And so it's not like, oh, who's that guy? It's always
Who is
who's
that?
guy?
Like, I have to answer to
so,
so,
like,
ask
no.
to be
Right,
in this
right.
picture with him.
Right.
Insecurity.
So number
Yeah.
4 was by unannounced, and they often do it when you already told them you had plans.
Oh yeah,
Now
I don't know.
that
See
That's
yeah.
scary.
is
Yeah,
a
don't show up
stalker.
at my
Yeah.
job.
And number
Yeah.
5 is when angered, they touch or grab you in an aggressive manner,
Oh, yeah,
or,
it's
Oh,
over.
yeah.
Oh,
or
you
they
gotta go.
stand
That ain't
near
stalking,
you,
that's
If that
physical
starts happening,
abuse.
you have to
It's
go.
over.
You
It's
need to
over.
leave.
and it gives you a creepy feeling that you couldn't get
That go
away
beyond
if you
creepy.
tried.
I
now
had
you
that-
mentioned that in
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
your
that
that happened at the
stories.
gym.
Grab me.
He walked
That's
up
just
and grabbed me
Wait,
while I was on
she's
the
saying something.
while I
I'm
was on
sorry.
the treadmill. He walked up and grabbed me, and that was pretty aggressive. And the thing about it is, like we were saying earlier, that family and friends are often affected by it. So at that point, I was actually training to compete back then. So I was in the gym all the time, and everybody knew me. But he's this big football player, dude. And he comes in there and grabs me, and you would be amazed at how quiet it got in there, because everybody. It's like the guys are trying to figure out,
What
do
do
we
I
go
do?
over there and
Step
do
in.
something? Or because everybody knows me, I've been in the gym for 2 years at that point, every morning, pretty much, religiously or whatever. And so everybody got really quiet and just kind of watched, because I guess they didn't know what was really going on. But that's just that whole thing where if you have a stalker, or even for domestic abuse, because a lot of women in those situations are stalked as well, but you're ashamed to tell anybody about it. So they didn't know what was really going on, because I'm all, I'm bad, I'm in shape and stuff, and here's this guy. They don't know if we're playing a stalker or an abuser. I let those abuse conversations or whatever, but the stalker part, you have to be able to identify those behaviors. And one of the telltale things are the ones that she said, and that jealous, possessive mentality. If they are controlling and possessive, you are their possession, you need to head out.
It only gets worse.
So from a life coach perspective, how do you, and I'm asking this question because I don't proclaim to have the answer. How do you, having had that kind of trauma, how do you move from the heightened awareness of trauma to the vulnerability of a relationship?
I can answer that.
Yeah, I think I could answer that from my perspective.
I think like with my situation, I think you have to, my trauma just really came up because I was triggered with an event with someone else. And so I had suppressed everything that had happened to me to the point where there were things that I just forgotten about because they were so horrific. But as I was triggered, then I recognized in myself, going into, that person trying to date me, like there's some healing I have to do with myself. I have to find acceptance with me because I didn't have acceptance with me. And my trauma skin was, I want someone to hurt me. My trauma skin was, that was my comfort zone, because honestly, that was all that I knew, that love was translated into hurt.
Wow.
And so when I would get into situationships with people, I would seek out, not knowing, I would seek out men that I knew were not good for me, that would hurt me, because that was all I knew. And that was all that I could relate to. So for me, my struggle has been in friending people. My struggle has been, am I looking at that's my comfort zone that's going to hurt me? I know this is sick. Someone that's going to hurt me, or is this person going to be good for me? And so I have to really be cognizant when I'm friending males that would be a potential to date someone. I have to turn my trauma skin off and say, is this person really going to be good for me, or is this something I see a warning sign, and so now I'm attracted to it?
So now I think choosing a good person is one thing, but do we also then create a scenario where we are almost creating or pushing a person to become that person who they're not? For example, I've coached people who the only thing they know is arguing, and I'm not talking about simple argument. The only thing they know is combative arguing. They got with a person who is as meek as snow, cotton,
and brought it out of,
and pushed and pushed and pushed to try to get to a place where they're comfortable.
So what do you do?
So that's my question. How do you go from the trauma of your past to a place where you can heal and start to see things for what they really are?
Well, I would. This is a lesson you learned, I'm sure, in the book. So let's see.
The first thing to solving any problem is actually you have to be aware that there is one. So the first thing is identifying that there's a problem. Like you said, I was also certified as a life coach, and one of the things that we used to always say is people get stuck on their story. So you tend to repeat it and you tell it, and you repeat, like the whole stalker thing. I said that was such an emotional thing for me, because even though I did suppress a lot of one of those stories, and I still suppress a lot, but you have to recognize what your problem is. You have to recognize that and people point the finger a lot that they did something. But you have to understand that at the very least you chose them, and when you saw the red flags, you stayed. So you have to take on a certain amount of accountability, because and I speak on accountability on my platform, that accountability and empowerment, because being accountable actually empowers you. It does not point to you and say you're wrong. It points to you and say you have a choice to choose differently. Right. That's what empowerment is. So I think that in solving that, you first have to recognize that all these people around me, they reflect me in some way, and I chose to have them involved. Is this kind of thing? Like, I had to look at myself and my choices, because I sometimes choose, often, to me, they're like emotionally unavailable. But then in going through the whole coaching process, I learned that I'm kind of emotionally dysfunct because of my mother. So therefore, I choose people who are emotionally dysfunctional.
With a lot of people where that is what they come to me and say they did. If I had just chosen someone different, this would be different. And then I realized as we dig deeper, they chose right. They created the scenario.
Because that person didn't start out that way.
That person isn't that way.
You created
the scenario where that is.
Can you really make somebody become something that they're not, though?
Absolutely. You can create a scenario. You can create a scenario where this is the only way to interact with you.
Because again, that other person, we are all responsible for our own behavior. So again, you can't make me be something that I'm not. I don't care what you do. I'll leave you standing there with yourself.
Just for clarity, I think what she's saying is I can't make you behave a certain way. And what James is saying, that you can create scenarios, not the behavior, but the scenario.
You can create the scenario,
where they're the only way. Give me an example.
Well,
so then you leave.
The interaction
can you leave?
Is
right.
You leave.
Now you can leave. You should leave.
Yeah.
However,
you don't.
I deal with. I'm gonna give you a specific couple that I'm coaching currently, where the young lady, because of the trauma in her life, and this is specifically a young lady, sometimes it's the young man, the trauma that has happened in her life, the only way she knows how to interact or feel loved is if you go at it with me head to head. He refuses to do that. And so she is trying her hardest to push him into a physical, verbal yelling match. And that is where she's comfortable.
And she realizes that she's doing this?
No.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Okay.
No,
she
she doesn't
what
realize
does
she's
he
doing
do?
that. And he loves her. So he's confused because he does not want to engage that way.
So the love is keeping him to stay in that.
But
Right.
here, I think
What the love has done for this particular couple is the love has caused him to retreat
Because he doesn't want
because he doesn't want to engage like
But
that.
is that
James-
love? Is that actually
but
love
James,
though? Is that love or
before
need?
love even came into play,
See, now
before
you- now you
marriage,
Because we got narcissists and codependents and that
that's
just
a couple.
so that's a
But
need.
in this situation, I don't believe that he's narcissistic.
He's not.
No, he's not. He's
she is.
codependent.
he
He's
is.
codependent.
He needs that.
Because a narcissist needs a codependent.
No. In the
Okay.
situation, he cares deeply about her. He knows her trauma spots. He
Mhm.
knows her troubles. And he's like, okay, most 8 out of 10 interactions were okay. But when insecurities hit, this is the only way she knows how to deal with insecurity.
Can I just say this? And he is a narcissist, and
The
he,
man?
he yes. If she has these traumas, he's coming to the scene as Mr. Captain Save.
How?
How do you get? Because she wasn't this crazy just overnight.
But that's not his bad. That
He still had the option to say this is a bit much. She needs to heal herself before I wed her and make her my wife years.
But what if he didn't know until after the fact?
I think he's
It
a
doesn't just-
codependent.
The
He
time
is a
like
codependent.
she just woke up.
Don't
She's
get me
just
wrong,
crazy.
don't get me wrong.
She's always had these
Don't get
signs.
me wrong. No, I'm not saying like, okay, he clearly he saw red flags and he blew
Stayed.
straight past
Mhm.
that. He wanted to
Do not
be
pass go.
with
Be-
her.
And
okay?
most of the time, maybe I can love her through this.
Through it.
It's
That
still
you
a
cannot
savior
do that.
mentality.
You can't love someone.
It's still a
as-
savior
as-
mentality.
As Wanda was just stating, like the intensity, maybe the intensity of the situation didn't come until after the marriage. So he felt like, I love you, you love me. We can work it out. No,
I'm not gonna.
I don't know. I think when the red flags show up,
yes,
yeah, we
red
need to
flags
really-
show up.
We
So
see
here's
red
the
flags
other
all
Early
the
and
time.
often.
We don't bail when we see red flags. You
Our
bail
problem.
when we see
You-
red
that
flags.
is that is our problem. That's why
Now
everybody's
you're
walking
preaching.
around
And that's
hurt.
how it
Everybody
progresses
just
to.
on a
One at a
relationship.
time. I can't hear. I'm lost. Y'all are talking at the same time. Who was saying what?
Okay. I'll end with my point. Okay. Red flags. We all have seen red everything. The nastiness. He don't want to, let the seat down. Okay, that's a red flag. She don't want to wash the dishes after a certain time. Okay, whatever. But I'm just saying. So we've seen the red flags. At that point, we did not stop dealing with this individual.
So you saying?
But you
put back
should.
to stalking.
Hold on.
To me,
Is that
so? Here, let me
signs
give
of stalking?
Let me give you a scenario. So
Oh,
I
we
dated a
talking
guy,
healing
and
from-
he
The
would
healing
play
from the stalking.
physically. Like we would be joking around, but he would be like, "That's a red flag." Now he's playing, but his intensity at the moment was enough for me to be like, "No, I'm good. Like I'd rather not just progress to something more where I'm in the house like." I thought we was just playing around. His intensity, what you gave are things I can work with. I can work with dishes. I can work, but I'm talking about verbal abuse.
But what if it
Getting intense, that is-
you don't want to clean up, period.
Well,
Let's
but
take
still, you're
stalking.
taking
Let's
apples
talk
and
stalking.
oranges.
We're not talking about not
You're
cleaning
comparing
up.
apples and
It's
oranges.
stalking.
So-
Now, if the person shows the behavior of stalking, red flags, which they say they are, say he's too intense, you're saying people ignore that?
Yes. And they still, my thing is, how do you get to the point where they're physically overpowering? How do you get to the point where they're mentally
Exactly, because people
crippling.
ignore
Well,
it.
you know
How
what?
do you get
So
to that
this
point?
is how this whole thing works. Now, it really does depend on what type of stalking situation you have. So in my case, all of my stalking situations was when I was done with the relationship and trying to walk away. That is when that behavior begins. However, I mean, okay, so one guy was an athlete and they're kind of known for having high testosterone levels. So they're intense kind of people anyway. They always want to win.
So
But
you
that's
look past that, right?
but that's not a behavior that necessarily and with the first stalker, I didn't recognize that jealous, possessive, controlling thing.
You saw it as
Until
him
you-
liking you.
Yes.
So you
He
let
like
it
me.
go.
So you don't identify.
don't
Well, I
understand.
never really got into the
What's the
jealousy,
difference between
possessive
not
thing.
identifying
Because once you
and
know
identifying?
better, you do better.
Right. You can't see that. And again, my stalking, the last one, I was in my mid 40s, but prior to that, I was in my 20s and 30s. So at that time, you learn as you go through life. So in my 20s, when I had my first stalker at 24, I had no clue about what the signs of a stalker were going to be. I had no idea that when I said I was done, that his ego would take over and he would need to win.
But Wanda, that was my point. I know we veered off a little bit, but that was my point. It don't matter how old you are. It don't matter what demographic that you come from. When a red flag is a red flag, you know what you like and what you don't like. You know what you allow and what you do not allow. And a lot of times you knew it was a red flag, but you allowed it.
But you didn't know it would turn into what it turned into.
But it was a red flag,
You
but
didn't
you
know.
allowed
You
it.
see, so now
I
you're
would
going back to
say-
what I wanted to bring awareness for, because now you're blaming the victim again. So
No, I'm
now,
not- I'm not-
if
I'm
I
not-
don't recognize that this is a fool the first time he does something stupid and get out, so now it's my fault that I
it's
didn't
not your
recognize
fault.
that.
But if we talking
And
about
especially
red,
when you say young, because you have teenage girls in high school that are being stalked and killed. They're not identifying these behaviors as something that is going to.
what gives you that sense of I don't like that? When you feel I don't like that, why do you keep going
For
on?
me, I'm going to my situation and when it happened. This is where the need to recognize some of my behaviors that I knew I won't do again. When I did analyze the part I played in the stalking situation, is that yes, I noticed when I was like, ugh, I don't like that. And it wasn't physical. It was just saying some crazy stuff
I
that
don't
didn't
like that.
sound.
I don't like that.
But then at the time, I liked the things that they did over here, so I let that outweigh. I let that outweigh the crazy, and then it started going.
Exactly.
And then it started going,
that's when you know,
and it was like a balance thing. And then I was like, "Whoa!"
Right.
And now it's time
This is
to
why I
break
asked
it
the
off.
question
Right.
that I asked.
Right.
And so then I said, okay, now it's time to break it off. And then a lot for years, but it wasn't consistent. They stopped for a while, and I think, I got rid of it every day, and then stop. So I try everything. Okay, I'm not going to respond for a while. And the more you don't respond, the scarier the messages. Oh my goodness. So I better respond because I need you to stop. So then the one thing they like, I got you on the hook. You responded to me again, and now they responded.
Yeah.
And then you do something, and they stop for a while. And you're like, oh, they gone. And then they start back, and you're like, I haven't even seen you. And I don't know if they saw me out or in the store, but something triggered, they back on you, and you're like, but now I had broken it off now a year. It's a whole year stalking and doing this and doing this to me and calling me and texting. And I'm in it solidly for months.
Yep.
It would be unreal to tell someone that someone could text you every day, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times a day for a year.
They can do that in an hour now.
And people will say to you, well, you must be doing something.
That's what they'll say.
I swear,
you must be doing
I'm not
something
doing
to lead them on.
I'm trying
Because
everything
people
to
wouldn't
make
do
you
that
stop.
this long if you weren't doing something. Leave them on.
No.
So this is the reason that I asked the question that I asked. Because the underlying purpose of stalking is to create discomfort and or to create a scenario where you cannot have another relationship. If we first don't identify the fact that you don't create stalkers, the stalker is just nuts.
Right.
I don't know how else to say that politically correct, but you don't create a stalker, the stalker is just nuts. If we don't first identify that, you can't actually have another healthy relationship because you haven't healed from the stalker. So the purpose of stalking has actually worked. You get what I'm saying? That's why I asked, how do we heal and move and go forth in a new relationship after you've been traumatized by stalking? Because if we, then you're actually mentally being stalked in the new relationship.
Yeah.
For me, because I'm already emotionally dysfunctional, I'm able to compartmentalize things, kind of like they say men do all the time. You guys compartmentalize things. So I was able, this is just me, I was able to separate that from a regular relationship. I knew too what a healthy relationship looked like, because I have a mother and father. They still married. They're, I saw what real relationships look like, the commitment part of it. I didn't take what this crazy guy that I didn't want to be with anyway. I didn't take what he did and internalize
as a reflection of anything I did.
Anything else.
But I'll tell you some things I'm hearing though. The reason, because I don't hear healed in a lot of the comments that we're making. Like, when a man does X, I just run because that means I've seen that before. That's not healed.
Well, so you know what? In life, we all learn lessons. And one of the things that we learn is how to identify things ahead of time. So it's not so much that that's carrying a hurt as it is you need to learn a lesson. Because the first time when you're a baby and you stuck your hand in the fire and you got burned, you learn not to stick your hand in the fire. So you don't go through life like, oh, I'm healed from that burn, so let me get another burn. You learn your life lesson, because otherwise you do continue to repeat it. Now, if we were sitting here with the same story over and over again, like I had 3, so apparently whatever I was doing, I got 3. I repeated it a few times, but you're going to repeat the lesson until you learn it. And so once you learn that the jealous and possessive character traits tend to lead down the road to a stalker or an abusive mate, then you learn to get away from those, because jealousy and possessiveness is a self-esteem issue with that person. We can't control other people's behavior. We can only control how we respond to people's behavior. So you need to identify, and then you have to act.
I agree with that. I'm not an expert on stalking, but what I am an expert on is trauma. And one of the things that happens when a person has experienced trauma is their alert meter, for lack of a better word, goes from the middle to high. So things that would not normally cause alert now cause alert. And I'm going to use you as an example, if you don't mind. One of them is like the dude said, hey, I'd love to take you to a wedding. That may not be crazy.
Well, I didn't necessarily think that was over the top for me.
But what I'm saying is,
for me,
for her, it is.
Right.
It turns into high alert. Like, not wedding. Not this time, buddy. You get what I'm saying? So that's the reason I asked, how do we deal with the trauma that we've experienced? Mm-hmm. Heal from the trauma and not take it into the next relationship.
And I think that's it. I think a lot of people don't take the time to heal. They end the relationship and they feel like, I have finally resolved this issue. Now I'm good to move on because he's the stalker. So it didn't, I wasn't affected by it. And then you realize you go into the next relationship and you either have high alerts on or you're overly passive to not try to trigger something in them. So I totally get what you're saying now.
I mean, I would say, I think one of the things that's really important, and I know we in the Black community, we really don't talk about this a lot, but therapy is really key. And yes, you can go to your pastor and your bishop and all that, but you need to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. You need to sit down with somebody that's trained to deal with your issues, to pull those issues out of you. That is so critical.
Wanda,
that is
so
critical.
Like that?
I have a few actually, but sitting here at the table.
Because there are just some things you can't heal for yourself.
Most things you actually can't heal for yourself.
You don't know what those things are.
Right, you can't recognize
them.
I
can't tell you what prompted me to stay in an abusive relationship. And my parents were in a loving relationship. I was raised in a big home, white picket fence on a hill. My parents had one fight my entire life as a child that I knew of. So to go into this dysfunction and this abuse that I dealt with, I have no understanding why I ever did that and why I stayed. I have no clue. I have no idea, because that's not how I was raised. I didn't see any of that in my childhood from anyone, any of my friends. So, you have to go to someone who can help you
Right.
dissect that
Right.
so that it doesn't carry on to the next space in your life.
Yes.
So a few people have been commenting. T Bizzle said, Greek God, those aren't red flags, those are trifling qualities.
Greek God.
John says, what's up? Joe says women definitely change their stalking characteristics after good sex.
I mean, yeah.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
I grew up with the twin sister. I've seen it firsthand. Joe,
Men too, though, I'm gonna tell you that.
do too.
Yeah.
And then he responded, T Bizzle responded to Joe and said, men stalk because they don't want you to have sex with other men. They need your money to keep them surviving.
What? How do women know white men do things?
in the world?
But John, then stalkers generally
That's
will
another show,
continue in hope that they will not expose them or the fact that you're being stalked. Once you
Right.
get to the idea you're being stalked, confront them and put them on blast.
Yep. Exactly.
I've done that once before and it ended very quickly. And you're right. Like stalkers are
We hide
almost
it.
ninjas.
Yeah,
They're like
we hide it. We hide it.
secret
Nobody.
ninjas. You're like, what?
What did you do for that?
They did what?
And what did you do?
Yep.
That's the second question. What did you do? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Or
James
that
is
you
asking.
can't stop it, because even how he worded that is as if I did this and it stopped. Some people have those stories, and some people may have that I did all those same things and
That's
it didn't
true.
stop.
Yeah.
And that I think becomes hard for me when I listen to how
That's
people
true.
You and
get
right.
that.
angry.
Yep.
A male exposing his stalker will cause embarrassment, and typically in the female mind, she doesn't want that embarrassment. A female exposing a male stalker is
Will
going to
cause
cause
anger.
embarrassment,
He like,
gonna cause
whatever.
anger.
Yes.
He's not going to get embarrassed. He's going to be upset.
Right.
Yeah.
And the response
said
might be
something?
swift and decisive.
Right.
So it really depends.
It depends.
I
And I've
agree.
had where you do all the things you think you should do to stop that stalker and they don't stop.
You
They don't
cannot.
stop.
This is what
Right.
the point I will make in this is you, the stalkee, cannot change the behavior of the stalker.
Absolutely not.
You can't.
Right.
In order to get into the mind of a stalker, you have to become one. And you probably don't think that way.
Not at all. Or have enough time for that.
So, and then James goes on to agree with Doc James, that's what we call him today, that he's asking the right questions. How do we move on from stalking and being stalked, and what drove us to that, and then being able to move on to a healthy relationship?
So I'm going to bring this back to you because there are lessons you learned in it. And I do want to bring up the book because we're going to move on to the next topic. So Xavier, I want you to tell us the lesson you learned. Is it in the book?
Yes, the lessons that I learned are in the book.
At least give us a couple.
The lessons that I learned were
Give us
in the
one
book.
lesson you learned, then.
What with regard to the stalking?
Yes. You all
Well,
want to know that answer?
Those
Yes.
actually were some of the lessons I learned, that we need to expose our stalkers, you know, even with the restraining orders and things like that. But we need to definitely let family and friends know. You cannot hide from, you cannot protect them. You definitely have to, and you need to follow the processes. Now, you know, the funny thing about it is there are some laws in place. So when you do expose your stalker, you know, there are certain things that you can't say because it could be
It protects
come back.
them.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
protects them. You know, the victim is always victimized. But one of the things that I definitely wanted to bring is the awareness. You have got to expose this. That is the first
Ah,
step.
that's hard sometimes.
You
I
have
will
to
say, 'cause
expose
to me, it
yourself.
exposed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause you're exposing
And I didn't
yourself.
want to
Yep.
expose that I even had a stalker.
Yep. Exactly.
So
Right.
that,
Or the ridicule that
the
comes with it,
ridicule
because
with it.
unfortunately, we do a lot of victim blaming. I
We
am
do.
so guilty of it. Even today, I've had to stop myself a couple of times from jokingly saying, "Girl, what you do to them?"
You know what?
I hear that all
we
the time.
actually, if you go back and rewind the tape, we actually said that, and you just said that they blame the victim, and then you start talking about another stalker, and we were like, "What did you do?"
Mhm.
Right.
We did do
Yeah.
that.
Right.
We did.
Naturally
It was a
comes out.
natural.
And so you don't want
I
to
had to
talk
catch
about it
myself. I was
because
like,
you don't want to hear
Yeah.
people constantly
I've been
saying
like-
that you
And when-
did it to yourself. And then
When
you
I say I
feel
had 3
bad.
stalkers, and that is a comment. If I say, yeah, I've had 3 stalkers, like, what are you doing? You know,
So
I'm not doing anything. You know, it's the people that you choose, though. You know,
It
you
is the people you're
you
choosing,
choosing those
correct.
people. So that's what I did.
so tell us how we can get the book and your book signed.
Okay, so you can get the book on my website, which is XavierFox.com. The book signing and reading is on August 26th. It is at Chance from 12:30 to
Chance in Hyde
3:30.
Park?
Yes, Chance in
love
Hyde
that.
Park.
Okay.
Yes, so I hope you guys will all come on out, get the book on the website. You can get the book by itself. I have a launch package, which includes the book and my coffee mug. I should have brought some. They're really cute. If you go to the website, XavierFox.com, and check them out. So the launch package, you get the book, the coffee mug, you get a drink when you get to the launch, you get preferred seating because Chance is not that big.
Let me tell you.
So, you know,
They
you
have
get
great
preferred
chicken
seating. If
noodles.
you don't purchase the launch package, then you don't get preferred seating. You just get whatever seat is available.
If you get a seat,
when
you
you
don't
get
have to
there.
stand.
Right. So 12:30 to 3:30, you should be able to get in. I would love to pack the restaurant. You know, that would be a great thing. He said they hold 75 people, so we should really be able to make that happen. But you can get the book on the website right now. I have it controlled until the 26th. After the 26th, or on the 26th, the book will be available on Amazon and all of the ebook things and all that kind of stuff. So
XavierFox.com.
XavierFox.com.
All right.
Now,
all
I
right.
have one quick question. Are they all like true stories of?
Yes,
Like,
it is autobiographical
okay.
relationship
That's what's up.
chronicle. Yes. And it starts with my dad. I did grow up with a father. I was a daddy's girl, actually. I'm an only child, so me and my dad were really close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why you say it like that? Say it something. No, I'm joking. I mean, I'm not joking. You did say it like that to me.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
first
Yeah,
popped
you
in
did
my
say
head.
like,
Like,
oh,
now that
okay.
explains a lot. Okay, we were. I'm sure you didn't mean that.
No.
I am a daddy's girl. A lot of men don't like daddy's girls though, because we're
Daddy's girl.
we're a little
Nikki, I
bit
think
harder
you are.
to deal
Mimi,
with.
I think you are too.
I'm not.
You are so close to your dad. You don't think it's a daddy's
No.
girl? No.
Me and my dad have an adult friendship relationship.
Friendship.
I'm a mama's
They don't
girl.
like to
Your
date
mama's
daddy's
girl.
girls.
Oh, I'm a daddy's girl.
Yeah, they
I'm
don't
the
like to
favorite of
date
all of
daddy's
them.
girl because
Of
daddy
all
done
his
told
girls?
us some
Of
stuff.
all the kids.
Are you out of other girls, you're the favorite daughter?
Yes.
You're gonna arm your daughter with
Oh,
some
wait.
knowledge.
I am, because that is my daddy and I'm his baby.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the youngest though.
The type of father that the daddy girl is invested with. You know what I'm saying?
He
So
said,
it's
"Oh,
like,
it's me."
when I talk to my daughter, man, you know, I love that girl. That was my firstborn.
Look at how soft he just went.
Oh my
Man.
God.
You see, that's
I
how
love
men
that
are.
girl.
The Greek god.
He's like, when I'm talking to my daughter.
You know,
He's a black
I
guy.
want her. I just want her. I want to arm her. Well, I have armed her with information that she can use interchangeably. I don't give her information to whereas I'm biased. Oh, this type, you need this. No, I want you to put it together yourself. But I'm gonna give you a nice foundation
Mm-hmm.
from which your platform for you to jump off of.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm gonna tell you key things
Mm-hmm.
because I know,
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Exactly.
So
My
I'm
dad
gonna-
was a player back in the day, so he
Okay,
armed me with a lot of knowledge so that I could recognize some
social
stuff
media,
ahead
I'm
of
not a
time.
player, but
I will not put that out there.
I'm not a player, but
I like to crush a lot.
Right.
but,
That's what she said.
I just want her to man, Howard University, chemistry
HU?
major type thing like that. So I just want her to be happy.
Do you
Well, I had my
involve her in
dad
your
and 8
dating?
uncles.
Huh?
8 uncles.
I had 8 uncles. I used to jump rope in front of the house and listen to my dad and his 8 brothers talking about women. And men always want to come off like, oh, we don't know women. I used to listen to my dad and his 8 brothers. They would be orchestrating stuff. They play women like fiddles. Men are not as dumb as they want us to think they are. Don't even believe that.
No, we're
Exactly.
They're
dumb as
Exactly.
We dumb as a
Exactly.
Dale only has one job.
Nail.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Do you involve your daughter in dating?
Okay, yeah. Man, she had a guy, man, hey, I just meet him.
I think you're talking
In
about
your
what I'm talking about
dates,
with
when
your
you're dating, do you say, "Oh, I have a daughter," and if your daughter didn't like her, does that play a part in who you?
Black said, no.
Why would you do that?
I can answer. Why? So
That goes into that
why
blending
would you?
thing.
Why would you?
Yeah.
how old is your oldest?
18.
Okay, so I have a 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old. So to me, it's because we have a very, very open relationship, my girls and I, very open relationship. To me, it's important that they understand the experiences that I've had or that I'm having so that there's no mistakes, So like my daughter we were just talking the other day, and she had made a comment to me, the youngest, and she said, at this point, like, Mom, whomever you decide to date or whatever, it's not that big of a deal because you're our parent. And it made me so sad because, like, when we're going like to the blended family piece, it made me so sad.
That's where I was
because
going with it.
I want my kids to have the experience that I had growing up, but they're so in this space where, like, we don't have a dad and we're good with it because you take care of everything because I have to. I'm their mother. But I wish that that they weren't in that situation. So, like, if I'm in a friending situation, like, I don't introduce my kids to guys that I'm friending or whatever.
But you talk to them about the process?
I do, because again, like I said, we have a very unique open relationship. So we share everything.
Okay.
Everything. And I think that my experience will help them be better women, and my experience will help them to not experience the things that I've experienced, I think, in my opinion.
Thank you. That was my
it was a good transition. But that was why the blended family thing was so important to me, because, like, as I look down the future, like, if I want to get married or get back into a relationship, because I had a relationship with someone for a very long time, for about 5 or 6 years, to the point where he was like their stepfather, and they're very close, and I don't want to get into another relationship and then form this relationship with this person, and then that's done. And then another relationship, and then form the relationship with that person, and then that's done. Because it became very tricky when we decided that we weren't going to move forward. It became very tricky with my children, because he was their dad. And, it was very messy.
I don't want to backtrack, but I am. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to that situation. John, no. And this is why the whole...
what is that?
No,
I can explain what I'm saying.
No. She about to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know where you're going, because I knew you weren't going to let that ride.
It went away.
Watch your cup.
Is it the yes, you can stop?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
So John says, yes, you can stop them. Bring in the authorities and
Meaning
confront
stalkers.
them wherever they work, live, and play. This is case of taking the bull by the horn. I met the lady at a party. We hit it up and had a night. That was it. I didn't want to continue. She did want to continue, and it took the cops, 2 of his sisters, and his sister-in-law paying her a visit for her to recognize. And
John,
support.
dear, just because you stopped your stalker does not mean all stalkers can be stopped because you did it. So many women wouldn't wind up dead.
Right.
If that was the
half
case.
of them dead if they could stop them.
Right.
If it was that simple to bring the authorities and the authorities do this, or it was that simple to stop stalkers, women wouldn't die on a daily basis from this.
7.5 million people
Can you
wouldn't be
do one
stalked.
more? Can you do me one favor?
Yes.
John. What was the size of your stalker again?
Right. My stalker was 6'4", 270
Well,
pounds.
he's saying through authorities, and even authorities don't help.
I'm scared of him too.
Yeah.
Right. And a football player, so you can't outrun him.
And I think we made a clear distinction. And John, I don't think you were in the room at the moment when we talked about the distinction between male stalkers and female stalkers. Not that stalking has its own habits. It's a bit different for a woman facing a guy 300 some odd pounds standing in front of her, and you tell him, stop stalking me. I don't think we would have stalkers if it was just a stop.
Right.
No, because
here's the police.
Let's just flip it for a second. You bring 6 of your uncles and they shotguns, 3 police. Now you turn a potential stalking situation into
a deadly situation.
Situation.
Right. Yeah. It's a deadly situation at that point.
Then you're succumbing to being a victim, he says.
And if he gets away from the uncles and the authorities and stuff, because the thing about authorities bringing the authorities,
let me just tell John, that is victim blaming.
That is victim blaming.
That is straight up victim.
The police are not going to do anything unless he does something.
Right.
So just bringing them over there, they're not just going to come and go visit this guy with you. That's not what the police do.
We see enough movies.
He got to put some hands on you.
But congratulations that yours stopped. And but please know that your experiences do not dictate how life goes. But
I wish it was.
I don't do victimhood. Okay. Go watch football somewhere. What's baseball? Do not watch football. Don't watch football. So anyway, back to dating
like soccer,
family.
football, not football. NFL.
I don't care what you
I I did the dating with blended families. My kids are real grown now. My oldest is 34 and my youngest is 26.
34.
Yeah, I have.
She don't
Yeah,
even
just
look like
children.
she
I
When you
thirty.
were
have,
2,
Yeah, right. No, I'm a little older than. So anyway, but dating back then, well, dating was a little bit different,
Black
but
don't
I
crack.
didn't have
No.
as many rules as they have now because it wasn't as crazy quite as it is now. But it was crazy, and I have been in relationships forever. So the first few weeks until I actually decide I actually like him. He didn't really meet my kids, but after that they meet him in the relationship, and it always worked for me. Now my oldest daughter's father, I think that we have like the ultimate blended family because he's married now, and I love his wife. I told her that she's my sister-in-law. We used to have that joke.
it's your sister wife.
And she's my sister-in-law, and he's like my circle because if I need something done around, I take care of my parents. And so if I need something done around the house, I can still call him, and she don't trip.
That's nice.
We're all there
cool.
at family
That's really
gatherings
cool.
and
Got that
stuff.
Will Smith,
We
Jada Pinkett
we
thing
we
going
just
on.
kind
That
of
make
all
it
help
easy.
each
That make
other,
it easy.
but it's really about being grown. I mean, because you know what? I don't want my baby daddy no more. So the fact that he has moved on with his life is a great thing for me, and he wants the same for me. Now, after my husband was killed, I didn't get remarried, so he has this joke. He's like, okay, so who is it for the next 5 years? Because I tend to have these 5-year
Long
relationships.
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, so who? I just seen them all come and go, but we have like the ultimate, and he's the greatest. He was the greatest father. He's a great grandfather. We just really have that shared respect. But it's really about
That's
just being
cool.
grown.
I am a product of a blended.
But
Family.
dating, are we talking just blended families or dating in
Well,
blended families? Nikki, since
Yeah,
you
I
brought
was-
this topic.
Yeah,
How
I
did
was
you?
talking specifically like more of like dating as a single parent, and then because most likely if you're dating someone and you're over 35 and you have children, most likely the person you're dating is going to have children.
Yeah.
And so you have to come to a point where, especially depending on the age of the children, because with my last significant other, my children were very young, and so he had a very big impact on their lives because of their age and going through the periods in their life that they were going through. One daughter was going through high school, another daughter was, in elementary, and another one was kinder and on up. So he was there at a pivotal point in their life. So if your children are young, you have to be very cognizant of who you're letting into your space, and if you're going to let that person into your child's space, because that becomes a whole different ballgame. Even if you look at the statistics, most co-parents are cohabitating. Most co-parents, like, they are operating as a blended family. And, if you're doing that, you just really have to, it's so important that you really have to be mindful of what it is that could happen in that space and how it impacts your children. I think a lot of times we don't think enough about how it can impact our children. We think about ourselves and we want to be with this person. So naturally, the children it's a package deal. But I think now in my situation, friend, because I don't like the term dating. You're just not going to meet my kids.
But you still are having the conversations about the friendships with your children.
Yes,
You feel that has no impact
that's
on
a
them?
safety thing for me too. Like if I'm going out, you need to know I'm going out with a person. I'm going to be here. My kids can always get me on my cell phone, because again, that just goes back to the open relationship that I have with my kids. I'm very perfectly honest with them.
When do you introduce them to?
To be honest, because of the last situation, I really. I don't have an answer to that because I don't have a desire to introduce my children to anyone else.
Okay.
They still healing.
And how old are your kids?
21, 15, and 13. Now they still are. My 21-year-old is still very, very close to the person I'm referring to. Very, very close.
And he's not their father. It was someone you were dating for a period of time while they were growing up.
Correct. No, he's not their biological father.
Did you live together with him? Did they?
For a period of time.
Okay.
For a period of time, we did. And I think, to me, it's important that as a woman, my kids don't see me jumping from man to man. I don't
But
jump.
what?
Let me make sure you understand. I don't jump from man to man, period, because I do the long relationship thing too. But it's because I have friends who will bring a guy into their kid's space, then they break up, and then 6 months later there was somebody else, and they break up. Like, to me, that's just not healthy. That's not for me. That's not for my kids. First of all, my kids are funny. They're funny acting. So you have to have number one, these girls who are very girly and very spoiled, you know, and you have to have the ability to understand how to navigate that, especially at the ages that they are in and the needs that they have.
I'm still getting confused though.
What's that?
Because if you say you don't, okay, so they're not meeting them and bringing around them, but it doesn't look like you're dating. But if you're telling them that you're dating a lot different people when you go out with them, they're still hearing it.
I don't do that. See, dating to me is different from friending. Dating to me is
because John did say friending. What the hell?
So
friending
is like we're a guy and a girl. We're hanging out. We may not necessarily be on the same page, but we like each other's company. You know, we're hanging out. We're not working towards being in a relationship with someone. Now, if I'm dating you, for me, that means we're working towards being in a relationship. We've kind of gone past a bunch of things. We're working to being mutually exclusive.
Friendship works up to dating.
Right.
Okay.
For me,
I get that.
For me.
I get that. But I have a question for you. So as I mentioned, my parents are married. I grew up in a household where there was a marriage, and one of the things that I learned was that relationships aren't always easy, but I learned what commitment is, which is something that a lot of people don't know now. So if you are not introducing them to the men that you're dating or not having these relationships in front of them, where do they learn that healthy relationship role model from?
Unfortunately, I don't think that my children have. I'm being perfectly honest, because they didn't see it with myself and their dad because he was horrible. So, and my parents have been deceased. My parents are deceased.
Okay.
So, or I'm sorry, my mother's deceased. So they didn't get a chance to see,
what are you doing, Black?
That.
Sorry.
and that, I think that's why my daughter was so quick to say, Mom, you're the parent, you're great, because even with their friends, they don't necessarily, they're single moms. And these are well-to-do people. So it has nothing to do with economics. You know what I mean? It's across all boundaries. And so I would rather them not be in a situation to think that they're going to see a healthy relationship versus me putting them in a situation thinking, oh, it's going to teach them a healthy relationship, and then it doesn't. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. And that's just like a challenge in relationships in general nowadays, because things have changed so much, and you have so many, as we were talking about healing, you have so many hurt people out here with the walls up and the pit bulls and no tools to heal. Electrified fence. You can't get close. Nobody's vulnerable anymore.
You know what I want to add right quick?
Oh Lord, I don't know what I said.
No, listen. The first time I ever saw a blended family was with my younger cousin. She like 10 years younger than me, and it amazed me how they really got it. They got it. Her I don't want to say baby, her child's father, she with the new guy. He cool as ever. We accepted him, because we like, male dominated type family type of thing. But we really, we take care of the women in our family. That's how we was taught by the older guys, old school for real. And they work. His girlfriend, the new guy, they all kick it. My cousin, the child's father, girlfriends go on trips and everything like that, like how you were saying, and it's no problem.
It's no problem.
When I say no problem,
that's great.
He watched the baby just like he watched, the child that they made, the new baby, and it's great. Like it's no problem. And it's like, when I talk to both of them, because, I interact with both of them the same way, we all, like for New Year's Eve, everybody came to my house. Everybody kicked it. It was no problem. So I love the idea of blended families.
Oh, absolutely.
But when they work well, it's a great thing.
Xavier,
it works when you're still not in love with the other person. Yeah.
I was going to say, is it easier to do when you're dealing with everyone's healed?
Well, you know what? Now I will say this, because I don't think that my sister-in-law is going to watch the show, but I'll say this. My daughter's father, everybody knows that he still loves me. So it's not necessarily about whether the feelings are. I love him too. I always love him because he's just been a great co-parent and all that.
It's not a romantic love.
But it's not I don't know what his love is on his side. But what I'm saying is when everybody has agreed, when everybody has agreed that the focus is for the better of the kids, then that is what the focus is, regardless of what the adult feelings
are. This is the one with the wife?
Regardless of what
she knows he still loves you.
Everybody knows he still loves me.
Do that, Wanda.
I'm just trying to understand.
This the one that you said
Everybody kind of still knows that, but it's really about what you agree
What you
to.
say, life coach? What you say?
It's really about what you agree to.
I don't think it's a wrong. That's why I asked.
It's about what you agree to and what your focus is as the adults in the situation.
I want to know what you want to say.
So why do you distinguish that in
do. I do, man.
Why does that distinguish then? Because I still love my ex, but I wouldn't say
No,
everybody knows he still loves me. I wouldn't say it that way. I mean, he loves me like I love him. We both have children, so that's what made it sound like it was a different kind of love. To say he loves you.
It is a different kind of love, because he's just one of those kind of people. He's a sensitive kind of guy. So, he just everybody but it's really about
this
what
blended situation just went left.
What the adults agree to.
I want to hear you, man.
He's done.
Let
Go ahead.
it come out.
Yes.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
In unison, they all say yes.
So this is a really touchy subject. With blended families, with blended families, people fail to realize the trauma that it causes children to when you detach.
Mm-hmm.
So commitment is critical when you jump into a relationship, period. And people don't have the tools they need to stay committed. I say this on your show often. Relationships don't end for lack of love. They end for lack of knowledge. People don't know what they're doing. And what it does is it causes immense, irrevocable trauma to children who are trying desperately to attach to the masculine energy or the feminine energy that is needed in their lives to be brought up whole. And then you because you guys don't have the tools, or people don't have the tools necessary, they break a commitment. And you're not breaking a commitment between you and a spouse. You're breaking a commitment between you, the mate you were with, and the relationship that the children are desperately holding on to. I liken it to this. I liken it to you are on a ship in the middle of an ocean, and you decide you don't like one of the passengers on the ship, and there's shark infested water. So you instead of getting the tools you need to deal with the person on the ship, you take you and your babies and you throw them off the boat into shark infested waters to swim on their own, and then you jump in yourself. That is what happens when you break these commitments in these relationships haphazardly.
How do you break a commitment? You mean when two people break up?
When two people break up who have been in these longer term relationships where the kids now have family. And we walk away. This is why I can't stand divorce. Because of what it does. This is why this is how I got in this business. I dedicated my life to this when it happened to me and my children. When divorce happened to my home and my children, I said, I got to learn everything I can about marriage and relationships so my kids never experience this again. Because the trauma that it does to children by themselves. And it's a little bit worse for males because males don't have an outlet to express how they feel. They don't say anything. And so they internalize this thing that when men are stressed, they go into a cave or what we call solitary confinement. And for some, they don't come out for decades. For some, they don't come out.
To the spouse.
To anyone. You ever seen a person who was happy-go-lucky, just jovial, then trauma happened and they are a new person. They are reserved, quiet. You don't even recognize them anymore. What has happened is that young man has gone into what we call solitary confinement. And what people do is they take their little toys in solitary confinement, big or little.
Yeah, I hear you.
Big or little, and they just don't come out. And so now you got husbands in marriages where they're in solitary confinement. You got boyfriends in relationships where they're in solitary confinement, all due to trauma that could have been avoided if two people who decided to get together had the doggone tools they need to deal with conflict resolution. I posted a lot this week in He Said, She Said group, but I was watching people and their thoughts on how they would deal with conflict, and I was appalled. Like, this is how you deal with conflict? No wonder. ...
I read that stuff all the time. I'm in
like,
a
you
group
got
with
to
young
be
people
kidding
too.
me. So what? When a person says, you know what, I'm done with you, what they're really saying is, I don't have the tools to dwell together with you. But that's not what we say. We say it's because you, it's because you, or if you had a. Instead of the tools need, you know what, I need more tools to deal with your. So for me, sometimes it's I need more tools to help understand the trauma you've experienced, or to help understand the trauma I've experienced. Tools
Now,
like
you know,
information. Like, how do we deal with this? For example, it is a known fact that when men are stressed, we've never had this conversation. What do men do when they're really stressed? What do they do? What do they do?
Oh man, okay.
Withdraw.
But besides, be quiet.
Bingo. We've never had this conversation.
Yeah.
It is a known research. That's what they do. But if you don't have the tools to understand that, you're gonna feel or say, he abandoned me. He rejected me. He did this to me. When he's doing what 99.9 of normal human men do.
Shut down.
They just be quiet.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I just
This is what they do.
Let me-
They shut down. This is what they do.
But I think what happens, because this came up in the group, he said, she said, please join our Facebook group. We have these same discussions on a daily basis. What is often said by women is, I'm trying to talk to him. He needs to talk to me. I'm trying to talk to. When they go into the shutdown, quiet, I think many women don't know how to navigate that.
So let me share with you how to do that, because this is going to help solve a lot of these blended family and kids in trauma. If a male is dealing with stress, the absolute last thing he wants to do is last. So what you do for him or with him in that situation is, if you say, hey, honey, what's wrong? And he says, what do we say?
Nothing.
Nothing. Or I'm
Nothing
cool.
that I want to talk about.
But it's obvious you're not cool.
That's
how women feel. Like,
here's how men de-stress. When a man feels like that, chemically, the testosterone level is very low. So what needs to happen is some kind of activity that raises testosterone. I'm not talking about sex.
Right.
Oh, I was about to say.
I'm just being real.
Everybody just went happy right now.
Like, go ahead.
Women went happy. Okay, come on, doctor.
I told you.
Come on, doctor.
I went right there.
This is the God's honest truth. Testosterone level is low. So he's not going to be in the sex mood because his testosterone level is low. So this is why men basketball, bowling, fishing,
drinking,
the club, workout, the gym. He needs to do something to raise his testosterone level. Then he will want to talk. This is why.
But then she thinks he's cheating because his testosterone level is low.
That
he
is
doesn't
lack
want
of
to have sex.
his
And
libido is down.
that is lack of tools.
Why? You probably seeing somebody else.
That is
So go ahead and finish.
That is lack of information.
Yeah.
My brother.
So what you can do is, if you want to become his safe haven, you can help him by saying, you know what,
Go
baby?
work out, boo.
You need the gym today. I'll take care of this. What'd you say? Go on to the gym. Hey, cool. And when he gets back from the gym, and he can't feel like going to the gym is going to be punishment.
Right.
He can't feel like going to the gym he's going to get back and it's going to be worse now that I went, because he needs this stress. Really, actually, I shouldn't even call it stress relief. He needs to rebuild testosterone.
That's what it is.
He needs to.
What happens often, and it is that sometimes I know we give this male perspective of these situations, but how about the woman though? What is it for her? How do you've given us the answer of how to deal with conflict for the male that let him de-stress, give him can women have something?
Here's the flip side. When a woman, and I'm not talking opinion, I'm going to tell you what the research shows. When a woman is stressed, because of the way her brain is wired, you all need to talk. You have to talk. And if a man says, I don't want to hear it, he's wrong.
Yeah.
He's wrong.
That's what
because
so
you have to talk.
Uh-huh.
It's not like you want to talk. It's not like you should talk. You have to talk because your brain processes information externally. So check this out. Here's a thing you can use as your own little tool. for men, when a man wants to be intimate with a woman, he has to take his external parts and go into her internal part. Y'all already know what I'm talking about. This is PG-13. He has to take his
Okay, we got that.
We
got that.
Here's the reason I said it this way. Okay. Because when he is stressed, or when she wants to be intimate with him, she has to take her external, which is her external thinking, and go into him internally, mentally. So you have to come into his cave as well. And the same way he has to
how do you get in his cave?
Aha.
He said, aha.
Now, if you don't, I said this on Facebook, if you don't want to be shut out, shut up. This is just real talk.
That's real.
If you don't want to be shut out of the cave, shut up. You don't go into the cave and start a conversation. I've had to learn this with my sons, because I'll say, what's wrong? And they're like, nothing. And I know, I swear for Claude, I know something wrong.
Yeah.
But I can't be like, sit down, let's talk. And I've done that before. And we'll sit there for 30 minutes and nobody said a word.
Mm-hmm. Or they hit you with nothing.
So let's go. Hey, grab the PlayStation. Or let's go out back and throw the football. Let's toss hey, here come the dog. Let's throw the ball to the dog. And the dog will play with us and everybody's fine. And then we good again.
It start coming out.
Then they coming out. Then we good again. So for males and ladies, he has to listen to her talk. Period. He has to. He can't say, I don't want. Men do that. Men listen to women talk. I want to tell y'all a secret that men have half a year. We don't want to hear what y'all got to say.
But you listening.
But we're listening anyway because we know you need that.
Or pretending to listen.
No, we're listening.
Okay.
Usually there's a quiz afterwards. So
you have to
hear what I say. No, you have to listen. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Women need to engage in a conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And you all are, your brains work so fast. Again, this is science. This ain't James Borchet. This is science. Your brain, go look this stuff up. Your brain works so fast. You don't need a solution from us. You almost always have the solution, but you need to talk through the emotions of what the solution is going to mean. You have to talk. Bingo. So here's where the conflict starts. When the two of you are in conflict with one another, and she needs to talk and he can't. That's where the conflict starts. So here's what you do. Ladies, you need to talk. So you call Joanne,
James Borchet,
and get it off your chest. The gentleman, you take your butt to the gym, come back home,
Facebook,
pump that iron, testosterone up. Then y'all can sweat it out a little bit. Then you can talk. If you don't do that, this is what I mean by tool. This is not difficult. Tools. You need to communicate and cohabitate together. Use these tools, people, please.
Black love.
Please.
We're gonna have to end this here. How can they reach you, Xavier, and get the book?
You can get the book at xavierfox.com. And don't forget to come out on August 26th. That is a Sunday from 12:30 to 3:30 at Chance in Hyde Park.
Nemia, you don't have to reach me, but I got to give a big shout out to the junior NBA team. All these
why I never even heard of junior
I'm
NBA.
not either, but they just won, and like the whole team is.
We got to wrap up, so I'm gonna have to we ran way out of time. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate you all so much. You tune in on Facebook. Thank you so much. We may continue just so they can give their wrap up to our Facebook crew, but IntellectualRadio.com. I appreciate everyone who listens. I heard YouTube, everyone. And then if you're looking for auto, home, life insurance, please contact Allstate for all your insurance needs. I use them. Tell Sal I sent you. Call 708-599-5100. Ask for Sal. Tell them I sent you. You are in good hands with Allstate. I will see you next week. Same time, same place. IntellectualRadio.com with me, Wanda B. 2:00. You would like, get out. I thought you cut it off.
Oh, she's a real deal, keeping it real for real. Keeping it real with Wanda B. Oh, all inclusion, no confusion. He said, she said, clearing up the drama.